Hello and welcome to this session. This is Professor Farhat, in which we will discuss the Corporate Code of Ethics or the Business Code of Ethics. Business rely on trust. Organization rely on trust. Ethical behavior is an essential component in any business. Why? Because a business will have to have investors, that they will have to contribute money. They will have customers that buy their product. They have employees that gives them time. You have regulators, the government overlook them. So trust is an important component between those parties. So when the company operate ethically, they protect their reputation, which is important. Why? Because if you have a good reputation and you need money from investors, they're willing to give you money. If you have a good reputation, you might generate more revenue from customers. If you have a good reputation, your employees are willing to work harder for you. To maintain compliance with laws, you have to have a good reputation and to build long-term value. So trust is important. Ethical behavior is important. And the bedrock of trust is a strategic asset for many businesses. And for most businesses, trust and reputation is a highly strategic asset. Now, to encourage ethical conduct, many businesses, what they do is they establish a code of ethics, a corporate code of ethics. Basically, it's a document that outlines what's acceptable behavior and what's not, to provide guidance for employees who face difficulties in a day-to-day operation. Now, the process of establishing this corporate ethics involves 4 different major stages. And in this session, we'll cover those. If you're studying for the CMA exam, you need to know those stages. 1 is the development of the code. 2 is the approval of the code. 3 is the communication of the code. And 4 is administering and monitoring the code itself, monitoring the program. How are we implementing the code? In this session, we'll focus on all those 4 steps, starting with the development of the code. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, farhatlectures.com. Accounting doesn't have to feel confusing or overwhelming. Most students, CPA and CMA candidates, struggle not because accounting is too hard, but because it's taught fast, skip steps, and assume certain knowledge you should already know. Everything starts to feel disconnected. At Farhat Lectures, we break accounting down into baby steps. We explain the why, the logic behind each concept, and how everything's connected so it finally makes sense. When the fundamentals click, accounting becomes clear and manageable. You stop memorizing rules and start truly understanding accounting. Ready for accounting to make sense? Start your free trial at farhatlectures.com. First, we need to develop the code. We create the code from broad participation. It requires careful planning and participation from leadership, that's important, but also from employees. You want the code to have broad participation. Why? Because you want people to buy in. You want the people to accept those codes. But leadership commitment is important. It's called the tone at the top. And that's the most powerful influence on ethical behavior. Because when you see how your superiors, your managers are acting, action speaks louder than than words, then you follow. So you want to see if there is a commitment on the top, and that's an absolute foundation. If executives demonstrate honesty, fairness, and accountability, more likely the employee are to follow those standards. So if the company is quietly cutting corners, the code is useless. Even if you have the best code on paper, it's just not a paper, it's a living thing. You have to live it. So a strong ethical culture usually include clearly defined corporate mission. What do we do? Commitment to quality and transparency, emphasis on customer service and integrity. So during the development, we might have an ethics committee, and we're going to document everything. So many organizations create an ethics committee, and usually it's from different departments, not only like 5 executives. You want to have people from different departments because you want the people to support what they created. You want people from HR, from sales, from IT, from top management, of course, as well. So the committee is responsible for developing this code, writing clear and understandable policies. It has to be in writing. It makes sure that whatever we are writing is an alignment with company procedures. So company participation increases the acceptance of the code and makes implementation easier because you want to buy in. You want your HR, your sales, your IT, your finance to be involved. Now there are two ways to build the code. You could use the principle-based approach or the rule-based approach. So what is the principle-based versus the rule-based? The principle-based is you provide general guidelines and encourage employee to follow ethical principles. You just tell them, here's the manual, the overall rules, follow those, not rules, those principles. Or the other way to do it is to tell them the rule-based. Rule-based is you specifically prohibit certain action to avoid unethical conduct. It's like basically playing whack-a-mole with the bad behavior. Something happened, you penalize them, say this is not acceptable. Now most code of conduct is a hybrid of both. You're going to give some principle-based rules and sometimes you're going to specify what's really not acceptable. But those are the two way to draft the code. Now, before finalizing a code of ethics, organizations often analyze risk areas or vulnerable areas where unethical behavior might occur. So you want to kind of guess what areas might be vulnerable for unethical behavior and try to do what? Try to pinpoint those areas and try to identify them and write the code around them. Like it might be about incentive structure. Maybe incentive structure might push management into unethical behavior, or maybe performance pressure, or certain areas in the internal control that are weak, sensitive operational areas. So you want to analyze those areas to make sure the code addresses them. You want the ethics policies on the most vulnerable areas to protect yourself. Now, you could also clearly state certain action that are prohibited. Like those are the don'ts. For example, conflict of interest. Well, you cannot have your personal interests interfering with your professional duties. That's a no. You can't do that explicitly. Improper payment, no bribes or illegal incentives. Financial reporting. Now, manipulating financial statement is a no-no. Fair employment. You want to treat your employees equally. Use of company's asset only for business use. Misuse of corporate resources unacceptable. Insider trading. You cannot use confidential information for personal gain. And of course, confidentiality, protecting the company's information. Now, to reinforce this code of ethics, the company might assign an ethics officer, basically someone responsible for managing the program. Well, sometimes you might have a committee that might include monitoring the ethical compliance, providing guidance and training, coordinating between different departments, investigating potential violation. And some organization, as I mentioned, they might even have a committee or a council made up of representatives from different departments. So that's great. We drafted the code of ethics. The next thing is approval. Approval is important. For an ethics program to succeed, it must receive strong organizational support. And what's the best message? It has a strong operational support. Strong support is approval by top management, by the board of directors, by the audit committee, by senior management, the tone at the top, the approval. These endorsements reinforce this act by itself is part of the code of conduct. When you see top management is asking you to follow. Great. Now it's approved. The next thing is we communicate this code of conduct to employees. How can you communicate this information? Well, you could provide a training online or in person, workshop and seminars, employee handbook, orientation session for new employees. And do you stop there? No, you want to reinforce this code of conduct on regular basis. Through what? You monitor the program. You remember we have that officer, ethics officer. Also, if the code of ethics is violated, you want to have disciplinary policies for violation. If you're taking it seriously, you should discipline the people that violate. Ethics newsletter or communication. Keep the people up to date. Employee acknowledgement forms, making sure that they are acknowledging they're aware of it, maybe on a regular basis. Make them sign a document that they understand the process. This is how you would communicate this information internally. Are you done yet? Absolutely not. You want to communicate this to external parties because organization wants to make sure this ethical expectation is part of their broader ecosystem, not only for employees. Suppliers, simply put, if your supply chain is dirty, you are considered dirty. So if your supplier is bribing officials
to get you good prices, basically you are connected to the supplier. So you want your supplier to know that you want to conduct business in an ethical manner. You want to let your strategic partners, major customers know about this. And this ensures that all parties working with the company follow similar ethical standard. So this is how you communicate this information. Then you administer the program. Once implemented, it must be actively managed through a reporting system. So you want to make sure your employees can report any unethical behavior in a safe manner, safe channels. This could include a hotline, an 800 number, confidential reporting system where you are protected, direct access to the ethics committee or the ethics officer. Simply put, the employee must feel protected from retaliation. Otherwise, no one will say a thing if that's not the case. Some companies, what they do, they provide outside services, advisory service. They might appoint something called ombudsman or ethics advisor that helps employee resolve ethical issues. So rather than going to HR, if you have an ethical issue, you can go to this individual, this advisor, to be used as a confidential safety valve. These advisors provide confidential guidance and help employee evaluate difficult situation. Also, you want to include ethical conduct within your performance evaluation. So when we look at your evaluation, are you acting in an ethical manner? Employees must understand that integrity is part of their professional responsibility. So although a salesperson is bringing million but bullies their colleague or lie to vendors, well, that's not a good ethical behavior. So if leadership excuse unethical behavior because of performance, the ethics program lose credibility. So part of your performance will be, are you an ethical employee? And what do you need to do? You need to have disciplinary action when needed. Violation may lead to disciplinary action such as written warning first, maybe suspension, mandatory training, or worst, fired, termination. And you have to be consistent and fair across all employees in the company. And obviously, as always, you need continuous improvement. You would review the program on a regular basis as it evolves over time. So organizations should on regular basis evaluate their ethics system and update policies when needed. So an audit committee will be an ethics audit committee will help with that to identify weaknesses and recommend improvement, maybe on a yearly basis. Now let's talk about ethical decision making. Ethical decision making involves complex situations where the correct answer is not immediately clear. And that's often the case in the real world. So one widely discussed model distinguishes between moral temptation and ethical dilemma. Moral temptation means situation involving a clear right versus a wrong choice. That's easy, moral temptation. Ethical dilemma, situation where two competing options may be both seem morally correct. Like, I'm not really sure. They both could be good. What should I do there? If it's right or wrong, that should be easy. But to help you, there's a test for identifying right versus wrong. There are several practical tests to help individuals evaluate whether an action is unethical. The first thing you ask yourself is the legal test. Does this action violate the law? If the answer is yes, we can stop. You stop, that's it. It's unethical. If it's illegal, it's definitely unethical. Now, not everything legal is ethical, but if it's illegal, it's unethical. Then you go into the feeling, gut feeling. Well, does this situation feel wrong or uncomfortable? Internal intuition that often signal ethical concerns that could be a red signal. Public disclosure test. If everybody knew about this, would I feel comfortable that this action appear on the front page of the newspaper? If the answer is no, well, it might be unethical. Or if the group chat leak test, if that discussion leaked, am I comfortable with that? How about the mom test? Would your mom be proud of you? The family test, if she know about what you are doing, would I feel comfortable if a close family member knew about this decision? And this test reflects obviously personal moral values. Now, ethical dilemmas, which is basically right versus right. Sometimes ethical decision involve choosing between two valid values, and there are 4 common ethical conflicts that we can think of. truth versus loyalty, telling the truth versus remaining loyal to a person or a group that helped you. For example, you discover a close colleague made a costly financial mistake. What should you do? Give them a chance to correct it or disclose it. Individual versus community, one person versus the group, protecting individual right versus promoting the group welfare. For example, there's a layoff decision and one person has to go for the company to survive. That individual really need this job. They have, for example, a sick member of the family, they need the health insurance. What do? Short-term versus long-term benefit. Immediate benefit versus long-term consequences. For example, you want to launch the new software, it's a buggy software, to hit quarterly target now. But launching it now for revenue and bonus, delay to fix security issues and protect long-term trust. So what do? Short-term versus long-term. Justice versus mercy. Strict fairness versus compassion and forgiveness. The employee violate policies during a severe personal crisis. Well, justice say apply the rules and terminate. Mercy says make an exception because of the situation. It's really it's an ethical dilemma. So ethical decision framework to help you make a decision. There are 3 common approaches, and those are end-based thinking, which is basically choose the action that produces the greatest goods for the greatest number of people and go with that decision. There's rule-based thinking. Here is, I follow the rules or moral principle. It doesn't matter, even if the short-term result is painful. Care-based thinking, treat others as you would want to be treated. Now you put yourself, this is basically the golden rule, put yourself in other people's position and act the way you would want to be treated. Now having said so, it doesn't mean if you are willing to accept fraud because I want to be protected. That's not the case here. The case is put yourself in their position. In a sense, if you were in their position under normal circumstances, what rational option you would have took. So this is how you can resolve this ethical dilemma. And there's a structural ethical decision process. Oftentimes people don't go through it, but if there's an advisor, they might ask you to go through it. First, identify the ethical issue, determine who's responsible for the decision, gather all relevant fact and information, all the data, evaluate whether the situation involved right versus wrong or right versus right. Consider the competing ethical values, apply ethical reasoning principle, consider alternative solution that satisfy multiple values, then make a decision, and once that decision is made, reflect on the outcome to learn from your experience. But in a nutshell, this is what you do maybe real quick in the real world, but it's not as simple as it seems in the books because each situation is unique with unique circumstances. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. The company is developing a corporate code of ethics. Which factor has the greatest influence on the employee ethical behavior? Internal audit procedures. Internal audit procedures are not part of developing a corporate code of conduct. They're a great resource to have. You want to have internal audit procedures to have checks and balances, but that's not part of developing the code of conduct. Industry regulation. Well, industry regulation, they set up the minimum requirement. They're not going to help you in developing your corporate code of conduct. You may look at industry regulation to make sure you're meeting the industry regulation because you don't want your corporate code of conduct in violation of those, but those are the minimum. I would say A and B, they're not the best answers so far. Let's look at, top management ethical leadership. Yes, when you're developing a corporate code of conduct, and when you have one, the greatest influence on the employee behavior, it's always the tone at the top. Top management ethical leadership. This is has the greatest influence. External consulting advice, that's good, but it doesn't matter as long as top management don't show their seriousness. Employees don't follow the rules. That's the strongest message that you can send through top management, the tone at the top. Now, if you're taking this MCQ on Farhat Lectures, you can ask AI to help you explain the topic, explain the correct and incorrect answer, create a similar MCQ. And if you're studying for your CMA exam, don't shortchange yourself. Go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional MCQs, AI resources, AI multiple choice questions, video multiple choice questions, resources that will help you prepare. The best investment you can make is invest in yourself, and God bless.